Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to ZTV Live. Today is Tuesday, September 8th, and I'm Susan Mulligan Fleischman. I'm so glad that you've joined us tonight. Before we get to our wonderful guest, James Ross, the musical director of the Alexandria Symphony Orchestra, I just wanted to let everybody know that our newest edition of the Zebra, September edition, is on newsstands now. And I want you, hopefully, you have been able to take a look at it. It's a special keepsake issue remembering 9/11 on our 20th anniversary this year. I know we all find it hard to believe it's been 20 years, but it's an issue full of really heartwarming stories and memories and remembrances of a pretty dark day, and of the people that made a difference that day. So if you can, please pick up the issue. Plus, we have all of our wonderful other stories in there, all the good news that we like to bring to Alexandria. So make sure you pick up an issue. And you can get home delivery too. Visit thezebra.org for all details on that. But without further ado, I'd like to bring my guest on, Mr. James Ross, the music director of the Alexandria Symphony Orchestra. James, hello and welcome to ZTV Live.
Well, thank you, Susan. It's great to be here, even if it's around 20th anniversary since a last disaster that our country went through, and now we've just been living through a slow-moving year and a half of disaster of a different kind. But yeah, still, there's a lot of joy in the world. Let's just say.
There is, and we're still standing, and here we are to celebrate. I mean, on the show must go on, right? That's kind of the theme, I think, for Alexandria Symphony Orchestra this season, wouldn't you say? I know that you are really looking forward to getting back on stage.
Yeah, that for sure. I mean, the stages that we played on over the last year and a half have all been outdoor patios, which are wonderful. Secret gardens and at retirement homes, and then most compellingly for the Alexandria birthday celebration. There's nothing as beautiful as an outdoor concert in free open air, but an orchestra also does love to be able to play next to itself in an acoustic situation like the Schlesinger Concert Hall and the George Washington Masonic Memorial, where we normally perform. And those venues, of course, have been closed to us and to everybody else over these last bunch of years. So there is this great sense of excitement as we approach our closer to the beginning of our season, which is coming right up.
Yes, it is coming right up, and thank goodness. Even in the time that we live in of distress and kind of questionable things that go on, we have science and we have vaccines. And so thanks to those things, we are able to get back together in person because, as you say, the outdoor concerts are great, but you almost like that intimacy that you have in a concert hall. Not to mention the beautiful architecture and everything else, and the music and the building itself all forms the art, but also the performers and the musicians forms art with the audience as well.
Yeah, the exact thing that makes that beautiful, which is that an audience and a bunch of musicians on stage are creating one event together, sharing literally sound waves at the same time. That very thing is the danger of the pandemic. It's like you don't want to share sound waves with that many people enclosed in one space. So it's sort of like there's a double whammy for us, that the very definition of what we do and the beauty of it is defined by the parameters that scientifically, and as far as the pandemic is concerned, are the most dangerous. But that is not stopping us, and it's not stopping many arts organizations from across the whole world have now lived with what the actual dangers are enough and figured out ways to make it safe through requiring vaccinations and requiring masking of our audience, which we're going to do as long as we need to throughout our season. We, the orchestra, will also be masked. Everybody who doesn't need to play an instrument that goes into their mouth, and we're going to be spaced out on stage. We'll have air purifiers also right around us on stage, so that it will, to the best that we know, be great and safe and joyous to be able to play together again, even if we're a little bit more spread out than we would normally be.
That's good. And everybody, I don't think anybody would hesitate to wear a mask. It's a very small thing to do to be able to enjoy the beautiful music that your orchestra creates. And I wanted to let's get right to it. I know that you had initially had what's the word I'm looking for? A set of performances in mind.
Yeah.
Please fill in the word for me, James. I'm tripping over my words here.
We had a concert or a performance planned of the Beethoven Ninth Symphony that was affected just a few weeks back by the unexpected rise again of the Delta variant, which means the Beethoven 9 involves a whole chorus, it involves soloists, it involves a text originally by Friedrich Schiller, and it's a symphony with just instruments playing for 3 movements, and then it turns into this glorious, joyous, embracing, kind of call for the unity of humanity in the last movement by turning, and only voices can do that, voices along with instruments. So that was Beethoven's genius stroke of kind of inventing that as the natural and irrevocable endpoint to this symphony that started with kind of chaos and darkness in a purely instrumental fashion.
And how appropriate to have chosen that for your first.
I know, it was gonna be. It couldn't have been better. It was like that's what we're coming back together again. We're coming back together again. And then 5 weeks before the concert, no chorus, because the dangers of singing close to one another and aerosols are even more pronounced in the choral world, and with no blame to them, they needed to decide that they couldn't participate in this program. So we were back to, okay, you can't do Beethoven 9 without a chorus. So we were gonna we took that great idea, which included 4 African American soloists. The soloists were from the Coalition for African American Performing Artists, and it was going to be so wonderful. They were drawn from all over the place, and also the text for Schiller, we were going to do a new English adaptation of that by the great poet laureate Tracy K. Smith, who's an African American amazing woman and writer who lives in Princeton, and she was asked to sort of update Schiller for our times, like the Ode to Joy. What kind of joy could we actually talk about? And she was commissioned for this back in 2018, so long before the pandemic. But her words that she converted to are even more poignant right now, actually. And so we look forward to being able to do that at the first point we possibly can, which at this point looks like the right kickoff event for next season. So.
Excellent. Well, we can definitely look forward to that next season. And so, but you are still going to give your audiences Beethoven. You had promised them Beethoven, and you're keeping that promise.
We are. I mean, that was there was a special conviction around our organization that if you couldn't do the Beethoven Ninth Symphony, it's hard to pick second best and third best. You don't want to do that among your children, and you don't want to do it among your Beethoven symphonies. But the Fifth Symphony was maybe the one that seemed the most iconic. And I think that everybody knows like Beethoven 5 as a thing, and they know Beethoven 5. It's actually the same rhythm as the when you say it as it is when you sing it. And that particular symphony, it does remain instrumental, but does also have these 3 movements of a fair amount of darkness, which somehow battle through something, which Beethoven does better than anybody, to a kind of like opening up to great light, which happens in the last movement. So in our own way, we this short and purely instrumental symphony of his seemed like the best translation of the same ethos that we were going for with the Ninth. And because it's shorter, we have room for more different pieces on the program. And so we are also including the amazing Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue with a soloist named Michelle Kahn, who, if you haven't heard her, you will absolutely adore her and love her. She's on the piano faculty. She's head of the piano faculty at the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia. She's a great soloist and plays all over the world, and has just recently performed with the Philadelphia Orchestra, one of their virtual concert halls, playing the Florence Price Piano Concerto. And Florence Price is one of the African-American composers' voices that was sort of rediscovered really only in these last bunch of years, 4 or 5 years. She was kind of forgotten, and much of her music was literally lost. In other words, people just didn't know where to access it. And then they discovered a trove of it, believe it or not, in the attic of one of the houses in Illinois where she had lived. It had gotten stuffed up there. And so it's like magic that only like 5 to 7 years ago, all of her music starts coming back to life. And then Black Lives Matter happens. And then every orchestra in the world, including ours, even before the pandemic and before George Floyd, we have always been thinking about, well, who are the women voices who have been suppressed over history? Who are the voices that just haven't been given their due? And Florence Price is one of those. So I'm really proud to have Michelle coming to play the Rhapsody in Blue, but she may also offer us a little, tinkling of Florence Price at some point along the way away because that's one of her great passions in her life.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's a great story. I can't believe that they were lost. I mean, actually, I can't believe they were found. Thank goodness it was all found.
Yeah, because that could have been like somebody who didn't know, the name Florence Price might have found all that stuff in their attic. If I find stuff in my attic that I don't recognize, I would just throw it away, right? And
Right? Can
so
you
so we
imagine?
were on
That
the
would be
verge of
terrible.
losing a large percentage of what she actually wrote.
Wow.
So I do need to tell you though that at the point where we figured out that those two pieces were great pillars for our program, it was a puzzle, a challenge to figure out how to make those two pieces work because Beethoven 5 says one kind of thing in a very serious way. The Rhapsody in Blue, being a rhapsody, has this a little bit more spontaneous feel, and in that one it really is kind of like jazz invades the concert hall. That when Gershwin wrote that, that's what that piece kind of fulfilled or created, something that'll Duke Ellington, a lot of other people picked up since then. It's like, oh, you
Uh-huh.
can do jazz with a symphony orchestra, at least in some cases. So, but it wasn't clear to me like where to put the Gershwin in relation to the Beethoven Fifth, and so we added two more pieces, and it might turn into three. But we're adding the Copland Fanfare for the Common Man, just because of the dignity and the reverence of that. It's both deeply American and deeply serious, deeply proud, and deeply positive. All of those things. Um,
Fantastic.
and then the other piece that we're including is along our lines of promoting unheard voices. Valerie Coleman is one of the very, very wonderful younger composers, African American women composers of our time, and she's written a piece called Unity, Umoja, a word that I've already used earlier in this interview. Umoja is Swahili for unity, and it was a tune, a Kwanzaa kind of tune, which she took and she arranged for women's choir, and then woodwind quintet, and then flute choir. She's a flutist. And then finally, she created a 12 or 13-minute version for orchestra that is totally
Wow.
gorgeous and totally positive. So I think we've got the right order for our program. So we're going to have, Rhapsody and Copland in the first part. Then we have to remove the piano, and then Valerie Coleman and Beethoven in the second little pause. Although we
Wow.
are not performing with intermissions, I have to say. So
Uh-huh.
anybody who wants to choose to come will know that we're not going to herd them, to a bar or into bathrooms in the middle of the concert.
And then back to the seats again. Well,
Exactly.
that pivot that you had to do just for this one performance, this first opening performance for your season, is kind of in a nutshell indicative of the pivoting that you've had to do since March of 2020, has it not?
Is it true? I mean, like we're no different than anybody else. Like we maybe some businesses were able to continue or figure out how to do what they do on Zoom and continue to make their products or continue to fulfill their mission. The music mission, it was a really hard thing to figure out how to do because most of the music that could be made safely could only be made just like you and I are talking right now,
Right.
me in my room and you in your room, and
Mm-hmm.
I can say something and you can respond. But in the art of music, if you're trying to actually play something together, the slight delay in sound and the way sound doesn't always align with visual images on a computer meant that there was just no way that people could do the thing that they were actually brought up to do with, which
Right.
is to read the feeling in the air right around you and feel where someone is going, just because you can tell, like that the air starts talking to you even before the gesture and the sound does. And those things just went into hibernation for
Yeah.
this entire year. I mean, people were able eventually to perform outside. We all put together little virtual productions, like you record your part, send it over to me, then I'll
Right.
record my part. And it sounded like music, but it wasn't actual real music making. So there was a
Right.
inherent frustration. But we were just trying to fulfill what it is that music can do in a time of trouble. And so we know that we were forgiven that they didn't sound always so great, our performances, but it did put a value back on heartfeltness, something that I
Mm-hmm.
know the Zebra cares about also. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, what is this special quality? Why does all the news, need to be downer? And if things are a downer, what can you do to actually make the world a little bit of a better place? I think a higher percentage of musicians were reminded of that as our real true calling and our true goal
Yep.
with music
Yeah.
in this past period. Yeah, so it's not all bad.
No, it's not, and you guys showed your innovativeness and your innovation and your willingness to kind of say, okay, well, this is what we've been handed, and so how are we gonna fix it, or how can we work around this? It's no coincidence that in those first few dark weeks of the pandemic last year, what did everybody turn to but music and performances online of concerts that had been going on? I mean, it was such a solve for everybody to kind of just get lost in the music for a little while there was, you're at home, there's only so many TV shows you can watch over again. You want something more fulfilling, and music really fit that bill for so many people. Speaking of innovation, we do have a clip of that performance that you just mentioned before, the Alexandria's birthday party from July 10th, 2 months ago now. Do you want to explain to the audience what this was?
Sure. I mean, I assume some of you may have seen it in one version or another, because the fireworks were just fabulous this year, and the city needed to a little bit discourage the people, everybody from crowding into Orinoco Park as usual. I mean, the audience is somewhere between 8 and 10,000 people normally, and they didn't, because of ongoing COVID risks, they still thought it was wise to create a live stream recording of the concerts. You could watch the concert anywhere and watch the fireworks from any balcony that had a view of the Potomac River. So, but we were on our normal stage, and it still felt like there were thousands of people there, and it felt so unbelievably heartfelt and warm to play post-pandemic for the first time with a big orchestra on stage outside. We've been doing lots and lots of small concerts to keep the flame of music going, but this particular one felt like a real coming together and celebration of all that's quirky and wonderful about our particular city as well. That mixes deeply progressive values with a great sense of history. So there's something that about old and new here in Alexandria, which I find very compelling, and actually is great for those of us who do classical music, because we want to take things that were written a long time ago and make them new and compelling for our time. Absolutely. Which is what I tried to do in this little clip that you're going to play. There's a beautiful arrangement by Philip Rothman of America the Beautiful, and we played it, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the very first time I did an Alexandria birthday celebration concert. But this year, after everything that we've been through, and very particularly in response to the Black Lives Matter movement, I wanted to see if I could mix in Lift Every Voice, the Black National Anthem, with America the Beautiful in such a way that the two melodies were weaving around each other. So we had a slightly smaller orchestra than normal, so I had to be a little clever about how I added those voices. But that is what I think you're about to play, and I'm sort of proud that in this world where the Black lives have not always been welcomed into the beautiful America that's talked about, that musically we were able to represent some of the actual truth of that, the importance of that intertwinedness.
Absolutely. And here it is.
Alexandria, good Lord, it's good to see you. So many bottoms of faces brings tears to my eyes.
That was a beautiful, beautiful performance, and I think everybody agreed with your greeting and your. It's kind of a sigh, like, oh, it's so good to be back. Even though you weren't all the way back at a concert hall, you were still back performing together. That must have just felt great.
Yeah, and when I see the videotape and I see all the kids moving around, like imitating the gestures and moves they see me making and other people making, that just makes me so happy. It's one of the odd truths about music in general is you put us in a concert hall and tell everybody that they're not allowed to move. In fact, the musicians can only move as much as they need to play. There's only one person in the hall who's allowed to move however they want, and that is me. And frankly, that seems unfair.
Well, I don't know if anybody's ever been to a show, watch a conductor, and doesn't think, I would like to learn how to do that. That just looks really great because you are just kind of embodying the joy and the passion of the music. It's just really, it's a wonderful thing to see.
Well, you got it. Because you've used that language makes me think you could probably be a conductor. So when
Oh,
I open up my next little conducting for amateurs course, Susan, you will be my first invite.
oh, excellent. Well, I will definitely look forward to that. So we have your October performance is all set with the Beethoven's Fifth and the Rhapsody in Blue with the other pieces that you had mentioned before. And I know that Alexandria Symphony Orchestra also has. You are kind of looking forward to a return to the classroom with your very popular Simpatico program with Alexandria City Public Schools. Is that right?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. The other big arm of what the Alexandria Symphony does, besides give the best concerts that we can, and really try to be vital to our community, is our education program, which is called Simpatico, and it's been in existence at John Adams, I think, John Adams Elementary School, going on into its 8th year. It is incredible how it has grown, and yeah, so those are some of the kids. They're just amazing. So they're divided into a bunch of different performing groups. That's the chorus right now. They're called Cantamos. And then they also have the bucket band. And yeah, that's Kyle, who's one of the directors. And kind of a really nice development for us is all of last year, of course, they were completely virtual. And there was an honest concern for kids who needed to be on a computer already for 6 hours a day, whether adding another hour to participate in their music program was going to be healthy for them. So we sort of reduced the number of days and the amount of time that we asked for it, and did I think a great job contributing to the lives of fewer students who chose to do that. Now this year they are back in school, and so we are able to do an after-school live program with the presence of a new director of education who we've just hired. So and her name is Meredith Riley, and we're also proud of her. Oh, that's a great picture. That captures a lot of Meredith's spirit. She's been connected. She actually grew up in Boston, and is half African American, and is connected with the Sphinx organization, through which I actually ran into her. And then I wrote her an email out of the blue, just asking if there was any way that, I mean, she does a bunch of other things. She can do improvisational jazz violin and improvisational jazz singing as well. So she's very kind of comfortable in a variety of different musical genres. And she has had this, I think, almost latent love or interest in education, what it takes to help kids who are very young make the kind of steps that make them not just enjoy music, but also become better people. And so she's going to actually work with Kyle, our present director, to actually enhance, and she'll be very especially in charge of the string, overseeing the string program at our school, since she's a great violinist as well. She will also be playing with the Alexandria Symphony Orchestra. And so our hope is that the two wings of this organization that have often been a little bit separate from one another, like the values around which Simpatico operates on exactly the same values as us playing Beethoven 9, but maybe there are more values that can bring them together, and Meredith's participation in the leadership of one and as a musician in the other, I think will really help us become even more unified.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic. And congratulations. I know I'm sure that all those students, as well as their families, are thrilled with the opportunity to kind of get back into that program. Music education is such a vital part of education. I've seen it with my children. It opens up their minds and they learn it, and especially, as you say, getting it in that young age makes such a big difference.
It actually, shapes the brain. Yeah.
It does, absolutely, yeah, and it helps with so many things, and so, well, that's just really looking forward to that, and congratulations and welcome to Meredith Riley for joining your wonderful team. James, I can't thank you enough for spending the evening with us, and for the treat of seeing your orchestra perform and getting a chance to talk to you. I could sit and talk to you for a long time. I think you have a great message. You have a wonderful energy and passion that you bring to your position, and Alexandria is just richer for having your vision leading that orchestra. So thank you.
I appreciate that. This is a very, very special community, and once I figured that out about this place, it's been, I've just been running with it, because it does sort of seem like a community like this deserves to have a great and vibrant and really alive and creatively thinking music organization. So that's what we hope to be presenting to people on October 2 and October 3 in Schlesinger. So I hope that people who haven't already heard us, should there be any, will come and check us out, what we're up to. Every concert is a collaboration of one form or another.
Yes, excellent. And so that's just your October. You also have full performance into the spring. And so people can visit your website at alexsym.org. That's ALEXSYM.org right there on the screen. They can find you on Facebook at alexandria.symphony. So please go. I highly recommend following Alexandria Symphony Facebook page. There's so much interesting information on there. There's a lot about Beethoven. Anything you ever want to know about Beethoven is on there. James gave a wonderful presentation back at Carnegie Hall a few years ago, and there's little snippets from that presentation that I'm sure you will, as I found, very educational and entertaining. So, James Ross, thank you so much for your time. Good luck. Break a leg this season, and we look forward to having you back again soon.
I appreciate it very much, Susan. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Take care. All right. Good night.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody, for tuning in. Okay. Oh, and until we go again, as much as you can, remember to be the good news in someone's life.